Thank you all for joining us today. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on this series. This is the third session in the JCDREAM Symposium series. Each session that we put on addresses one of the main focus areas of JCDREAM. The overarching issue for JCDREAM is the use of earth-abundant materials and recycling to alleviate critical materials issues and supply challenges in several of Washington State's industries. The focus areas that contribute to that large-scale vision are electrofuels, battery materials, and education and workforce development. In this symposium series, we're also going to incorporate a Washington State policy discussion, as that plays a big role in progress in these aforementioned areas. Today's session addresses the education and workforce development arm of the critical materials conversation. So we've been working on efforts to advance education around material science so that we can help solve the critical materials issues as we move forward in the clean energy future. And so we're excited to share that progress with you today. So today's session is called Advancing Education in Critical, Rare, and Abundant Materials in Washington State. Our speakers are Mel Cassette, who's Executive Director and Principal Investigator of MAT-EDU and Project Team. Ann Avery is the Director of the Northwest Center of Excellence for Marine Manufacturing and Technology. And Patricia Townsend is a Regional Extension Specialist at the WSU Metro Center for Applied Research. They're going to be our primary speakers, but we'll also have an introduction shortly here from Erin Fever, the Director of JCDREAM. So just a quick note about our upcoming sessions. We're finalizing dates for our 2021 sessions as of right now. First up at the end of January will be a battery materials and electrification session. February we'll have a Washington State policy feature I mentioned, and we're working on a national security and material supply chain session for March. So those will be exciting, and we should have some really interesting speakers for those. Today's agenda, right now we're in the welcome portion. Shortly, Erin Fever of JCDREAM will give us an introduction to the rest of the session and introduce our speakers. Mel Cassette and Ann Avery will then introduce Materials Washington and the proposal, the funding opportunity that we have available right now, and then we'll go to breakout rooms. These breakout rooms will be more collaborative. If you've been to our past sessions, they were shorter. These are 20-minute breakout sessions, so we'll have ample opportunity to discuss and network in those two breakout rooms. At 10:30 approximately, we'll have Patricia Townsend share some of her research with us, and then we'll go to another breakout room after that. And then at the end of the session, we'll have a Q&A portion. Just a little bit of housekeeping. Please feel free to ask questions using the chat box in your Zoom control bar at any time. We ask that you remain muted until the breakout rooms, just so that we can minimize distractions. And then at the end of the session, we have an evaluation survey that we will send out. It'll be sent out immediately following the event. We would really appreciate if you would participate in that survey to give us some feedback. That also helps with Mel and Ann's evaluations for their programs that they're running. So with that, I will hand it over to Erin.
Well, thanks everyone for coming today. We're really excited to be doing this in a virtual format. We had actually intended to have everyone out for an in-person event back in March, but actually this is kind of cool because I think we actually have more folks here online today than we would have been able to get in Everett. In person. So in some ways, this is actually pretty cool, and I hope that we can still accomplish a lot of what we set out to do. So I want to just give you all a little bit of an overview about JCDREAM. I'm sure some of you have heard this before. I see a lot of familiar faces out there. But the primary goal here is to launch Materials Washington, which is the educational and workforce development arm of JCDREAM. So let me just tell you a little bit about JCDREAM, though. JCDREAM is the Joint Center for Deployment and Research in Earth Abundant Materials. It is a Washington State research institution founded in 2015 by what I think is really a pretty visionary law from the Washington State Legislature. Say thank you to Norma Smith, who's here today if you get a chance. And the guidance from our founding from the state legislature was that JCDREAM should focus on critical materials issues and earth abundance solutions to those issues in the area of clean energy, transportation, and then, of course, sustainability and recycling. And so I'll talk a little bit more about earth abundant materials and how clean energy and transportation fit into this space. But what I wanted to tell you a little bit about is how this matters for Washington State. So in Washington State, the interesting thing is that when we talk about, I think we all know what clean energy is, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Transportation is actually a bit unique. In our state, we're not focused so much on like the passenger vehicle market. We're a bit more putting a bit more emphasis on things like aviation or trucking and shipping, with a nod to PACCAR, who produces trucks, and Amazon Logistics. And then as well, we need to put a major emphasis on the marine sector, which Anne is here to help us with. And then the data centers are a big focus area. And all of these require massive amounts of energy. So I'll talk a bit about how that all fits together. But the other focus of JCDREAM, aside from this technology, is making sure that our next generation of students and our workforce really is able to perform well in this advancing technology and all these fields that are converging into what we hope will become our clean energy future. So we really need to focus on workforce development and education, and that's what we're all here to talk about today. I really want to highlight that we really do care a lot about our students, and equity and diversity are something that's extremely important to us at JCDREAM and Materials Washington. And it really is, it's an important focal point because we're really lacking the horsepower that we need to solve the problems of the future. And I think that being inclusive and bringing more folks to the table in the STEM fields and science and engineering is extremely important. And so that's a primary point that we want to focus on today. And while we're on the subject of students, I'd also like if you all could answer the poll question that we're about to pop up there. We'd like to know what type of an organization are you from, and so we can get an idea of who your students are. So especially if you're an educator, I guess I would answer in terms of your educational capacity. So it looks like this is just popping up real time. This is the first time that we've done, or at least that I've done polling here for one of these symposium. So looks like we've got a lot of folks from four-year teaching colleges, vocational or technical colleges. That's fantastic. And two-year institutions. Not too many folks from industry. So I guess that's not too surprising considering the education focus of today. There goes one person popped up. But I think one thing that's nice about some of the other JCDREAM contexts is that there's a lot of folks that are focused on industry, some government, and other people. So it looks like we've got a pretty good sector of different people in attendance. So that's great. I'm going to go ahead and end that poll. And so I guess the message here is, oh, sorry, I wasn't sharing the results here. I'll share the results. There you go. Give everyone a chance to take a quick look at that, especially for Mel, Ann, and Patricia, so that they have an idea of who their audience is. Okay. So we need, now I need to get this poll to go away. There we go. So we really do need help from all of you, and that's why I wanted to put a little emphasis on the audience here, because we're looking for curriculum and participation to come from the audience. Okay, so let me talk a little bit briefly here about what clean energy and the clean energy infrastructure means in Washington State. So we've got Washington State, we've got the electric power grid, we've got liquid fuels such as gasoline, jet fuel, or marine fuel, and we've got We've got gas fuels, mostly natural gas, but there are others in certain cases. And really, this is most of where all of our energy comes from in Washington state. And that's pretty common across most of the country, if not most of the world. So what's interesting about Washington state is that we are uniquely powered already by a very clean power grid. So we have obviously a large swath of hydropower, augmented by wind and solar, and increasingly battery energy storage opportunities. And the cool thing in Washington state, again, is that we are beginning to power our transportation infrastructure in a big way, more than most other states, with that electric power grid, that clean electric power grid. So we're getting large deployment of passenger vehicles. We actually have a burgeoning electric aviation industry. We're seeing electric trucks. You see this again from PACCAR and Amazon, and we're starting to see a lot of electrification of marine as well, with electric ferries and electric tugboats and things like that. And then of course our power grid has been for a long time supplying clean electricity to our industries, residences, and data centers. So that's all great. The tricky thing is that those same sectors also rely on these fossil fuels, liquid fuels like gasoline and jet fuel, as well as natural gas. And what we need to be looking towards the future, we need to be starting to capture, or in some ways insert, the CO2 that is emitted from those fossil fuels into a circular economy, so that the CO2 doesn't just reside in the atmosphere forever, but it gets inserted back into a closed loop system. So we can actually do that with some help from our very clean electric power grid. If you are able to capture CO2 on board transportation or from industry, it's probably a bit easier in stationary applications. You can take that CO2 and insert it back into some sort of a fuels infrastructure. You can then combine the clean electricity that we have from our power grid. We can use that to produce hydrogen and combine that with carbon from the CO2 and reinsert it back into this same infrastructure as hydrocarbon fuels. So you can actually make diesel or gasoline or methane, but you also can make alternate fuels, like things like ammonia or methanol are all different options that could be considered electrofuels. And we can insert that into this clean energy vision. Now, this is not something we're going to accomplish in the next 5 years. We may be making some progress towards it 10 years from now, but really in the long run, by 2040 or 2050, we need to be seeing this kind of thing in order to resolve a lot of our carbon emissions challenges. So here's the tricky thing, and this is where the earth abundant materials and critical materials angle comes in. When you look at these technologies, we have some issues. We have things like battery critical materials like lithium and cobalt. I always tell people this, but 2/3 of the world's supply of cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And a large portion of that, unfortunately, is mined by people, and including children in many cases, digging cobalt out of the ground. So sad to say it, but the cell phone in your pocket contains a small amount of cobalt that was probably mined by kids in Africa. And that kind of situation repeats itself over and over again when we're dealing with critical materials, which are rare, hard to source, or difficult to obtain. And oftentimes they're expensive as well. So we've got things like lithium and cobalt in the battery supply chain, indium, gallium, germanium, and silver in solar cells. We have neodymium and dysprosium in rare earth magnets, which are in wind turbines and electric motors. And then that electrofuels space relies heavily on catalysts. So we've got platinum group elements like ruthenium and iridium, as well as cobalt and cerium, all as catalysts in that infrastructure. And so this is a challenging situation. And again, this is going to be evolving over the next several decades, and we really do need the next generation of scientists and engineers to understand these kinds of challenges, so that we can rely on earth abundant solutions to these technology challenges instead of these critical materials. So that's where education and workforce development really comes into play. And so for that reason, JCDREAM has chosen to launch Materials Washington as a separate organization. And again, this is going to be spearheaded by Mel Cassette at Edmonds College and Matt EDU, as well as Ann Avery at the Marine Center of Excellence. And I'll introduce them here real shortly. But again, the focus point for Materials Washington is critical and rare materials and the earth abundant alternatives to those materials. We really do want to focus on the latest manufacturing and materials solutions and help educate people about those. We want to make sure that our upcoming workforce understands materials recycling, and that if you are going to use critical materials, it's extremely important to make sure that there's a closed loop and a circular economy. And then we can also help by connecting a lot of folks to the Washington State research community, because a big part of what JCDREAM does is to focus on that research community and advancing the materials space. So we're launching a grant program where we can fund curriculum development. And again, that's going to be based on feedback from this group and hopefully a lot of involvement from you all. We have surveyed the Washington State Community College sector to understand where education in material science and the STEM fields is occurring, and to try to develop educational modules to augment that. And Patricia will talk a bit about that later on. And then I think it really is important to emphasize that we do need to develop programs not only for higher ed, but for middle school and high school students. I think Mariah actually did a great job of pointing out in our recent blog that by 2040 or 2050, all the kids that are in middle school and high school right now are going to be in their prime of their career. They're going to be like us and out there solving all of the big problems that we need to see solved in the future. And then, of course, JCDREAM is working hard to involve industry, because they really are the recipient of a lot of these, a lot of this workforce is going to be serving in industry. So we want to make sure that we have input from all of them. I just wanted to highlight real quick our website. So we've got a great website that Mariah has been helping with. We've got a blog here. We've got a lot of resources already on the website, and any curriculum that we end up developing will be posted here, as well as on the Matt EDU website, and will really be available to a national and global audience. If we're coming up with good material, it's going to be something that's useful to all. And so without further ado, here I want to get on with the program and introduce Mel and Ann, who are going to take over. So Mel is the Executive Director for the National Resource Center for Materials Technology Education. She's also the Principal Investigator of Project Team for Technician Education in Additive Manufacturing and Materials. And these programs are both funded by the National Science Foundation Advanced Technology Education Program and housed at Edmonds College. Mel has over 25 years of experience in manufacturing education. She's developed technician training programs for industry and educational institution, and currently serves as the Executive Director and Principal Investigator for Matt EDU, providing instructional resources. Sorry, I lost track of my cursor there. Providing instructional resources for material science, technology, and education. And then Ann Avery is the Director for the Northwest Center of Excellence for Marine Manufacturing and Technology. She is the current chair of the Marine League of Schools, a national consortium of 14 marine technology education providers. And Ann works directly with the marine industries of Washington State, standards organizations, state and national partners to introduce industry-based technologies, processes, and best practices in the classroom and lab to support the maritime workforce. Ann has led multiple research projects focused on the marine industry's workforce, aluminum welding, emerging technologies, and the development of industry recognized skill standards. We're so lucky to have Mel and Ann here to help guide us, and I really look forward to learning more about what you all have to share with us. So without further ado, welcome Mel and Ann.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I am so pleased to be here and to be able to work with JCDREAM and collaborate with organizations here in our state to promote these initiatives that Erin has presented. I want to also say thank you to my Matt EDU partners, my team partners nationally who are on this call. I truly appreciate your support and your continued influence and interest in material science, technology, education on all levels, and your willingness to learn more, which is why we're all here, right? To know more about what is going on. As Erin said, I'm the director of MAT-EDU, which is Instructional Resources for Materials Science Technology Education. So I'm the PI. We have an education and industry focus. I am housed at Edmonds Community College, and we are the host for the JCDREAM module proposals as they come in. You see our website there. Erin mentioned earlier that your modules, as modules get finished and are ready to be published, they go up on not only JCDREAM's website, but ours at materialeducation.org. And right now, everything that is up there that is posted is available and open source. So I have been working with Erin, I think, for about 1.5 years now, and I am the lead for the JCDREAM Materials Washington Educational Initiative, and I'll be the PI on this project. So, and now I'd like to introduce Anne.
Thanks again, Mel, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to be here. It's, as Mel said, it's a pleasure to work on this project, and I want to thank Erin and Mariah for all of their leadership and hard work on this. So it's fun to be part of something that is very forward thinking and absolutely critical, not just to our economic success, but our viability as a broader economy. As Erin said, I am director for the Center of Excellence for Marine Manufacturing and Technology. And I wanted to take a moment to talk about what the Centers of Excellence are. There are 11 Centers of Excellence located throughout the state of Washington, and they are funded through the State Board for Community and Technical Colleges. And they were named through a competitive process in 2004 and 2005. The role of the center is to be an economic and workforce development strategy to support workforce development for industries that have been identified as critical to the state's economic well-being and competitiveness. The one that I'm privileged to run is marine manufacturing. I'll name a couple of other centers. We have agriculture and natural resources, aerospace, as you might imagine, energy, health sciences, and you can find more information about the Centers of Excellence at our website, which is coewa.org. And we're always happy to answer questions about the role of the centers. We work statewide. We're located at a community or technical college. I happen to be home-based at Skagit Valley College, but I work with industry and education on a statewide level. I'm also very happy to be co-PI on the proposal review team and leading the proposal review team for today's discussion. This morning, I'm going to introduce you to our Materials Washington proposal process. And we want to kick this off by sharing a few of the guiding principles of Materials Washington. First, what is Materials Washington? And it's an effort to enhance the knowledge and awareness of the materials industry in Washington State, providing innovative training and education using state-of-the-art technology. And this is across all education disciplines, all STEM disciplines. And this goes to K-12, it goes to the post-secondary community, the two-year community and technical college system. I would even say, I dare say apprenticeship absolutely falls into those STEM categories, and of course the four-year system. And I've been fortunate to work with Mel for a number of years on materials as they relate to cross-industry education and training for technicians. And I think Materials Washington is a maturation of that process. We're taking a care, learn, and solve approach where we care about the problems we're facing. We want to learn about the options and provide practical and pragmatic challenges to solving some of those challenges. Again, we take a statewide approach in Materials Washington. We are looking at diverse STEM topics. Erin spoke a little while ago about some of the battery technologies, electrical technologies. In materials, there is a wide swath of materials and attendant considerations. So this is a very rich and deep topic area. We have a commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. We know that our workforce is changing demographically, and I'm very excited about the 2020 census outcomes, the reports and the data that will come out of that. we really want to and have a commitment to reaching out to underserved and underrepresented communities. As Erin very rightly said, you know, our future workforce is happening now. And in 20 and 30 years, these folks, 15 years, these folks are going to be in the prime of their careers, and we want as much diversity as we can possibly get. And that's an absolute guiding principle for us in this project. And we obviously want to develop funding to support module development and the evolution and focus of Materials Washington. So let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts. So we have a proposal opportunity, and I will share the website with you here in just a moment, but I want to give you some of the high level structural components. We have, I'm going to go over the proposal structure, adherence to guidelines, word counts, and that there is an exclamation point there on purpose, the submission and review process. But before we get into that, any questions you might have about the proposal, please send that to me. My email is right there. Questions regarding the financial process should be directed to Mel. Her email is right there. Proposals themselves will be sent directly to me, ann.avery@skagit.edu. Upon receipt of your proposal, you will receive an email acknowledgement from me that your proposal was received. We're going to give out 2 awards this round, up to $2,500 per award. And applicants may apply for a maximum of 2 modules. So you can put in a proposal for 1 module up to $2,500, or you may put in a proposal for 2 modules for a total funding request of up to $5,000. And we're going to review this in at the end too, at the end as well. We have kind of a tight timeline for you all, but I think this is very doable. The proposals are due by the close of business 5 p.m. on December 18th. That's 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. All proposers, excuse me, will be notified by mid-January of your status, regardless of your award status. And the instructional modules need to be prepared and are due no later than May 31, 2020 or 2021. So I apologize for that typo. And then for the format, the module format, if you'll go to the MAT.edu site, the template can be found there. We've provided that link for you. And we have a link to the solicitation page as well. If you find as you're going through this process, you can't find these things, please contact me and I'll be very happy to send them to you. Here's the eye chart part. Here's the solicitation link again. And I'm gonna run through some of this real quickly for you. Again, the intent of this is to be high level. This will take you to the proposal page where it will give you another overview on the process, what the requirements are, submission dates, and that type of thing. And this slide is really more or less just to say this is what the page is going to look like. We're not going to go through this. It would be kind of painful for everybody. And then the second eye chart, the application screenshot, this is what you should find. If you don't, please let me know, and then we'll help you get there. Now we'll get to the part that's less of an eye chart, the peer review process. So as I said earlier, I'm going to be leading the committee that will be reviewing the proposals, and we are adhering to a scoring rubric, and I want to go over that with you very quickly. We're going to weight each component of the applications. So alignment to the JCDREAM objectives, 20 points. Collaboration and team, 10 points. Impact and merit, 40 points. And module description, sustainability, and dissemination plan, 30 points, for a total of 100 points. I want to emphasize here that we do have word counts, and I'm going to go through that really quickly with you. For the module description, it's 400 words. Impact and merit, it's 500 words. Alignment is 200 words, and collaboration and team are 300 words. And those are very clearly spelled out on the application page. You'll see that, you know, this is not an onerous task for you, and we really want to encourage you to consider submitting a proposal for funding of a module curriculum. We have a tight turnaround. They're due again by December 18 at 5 p.m., but we feel as though that's a reasonable time frame for you all, because we're not asking you to write a lot. We really want you to adhere to those word counts. Those will be strictly monitored. A few notes regarding the process. We can't review a process or a proposal in advance, a full proposal. We're happy to respond to questions about a concept or idea that you might have, but please don't ask us to read a full proposal in advance and then provide you feedback. We want to have a very transparent and open and clean process. And to do that, we cannot review proposals in advance. If you'll send your proposals directly to me, again, by December 18, we'll acknowledge receipt of that proposal, and then you will be notified by January 2021 of your status. This is a tight timeline, and we do acknowledge that, but we're very enthusiastic about the process. We want to work with you. We encourage a broad swath of STEM materials related proposals. There is no right or wrong. If you've got a nugget of an idea, throw it out there. We want to see everything, because you just don't know what could come of those ideas. And then we're hoping to develop further funding later down the road to fund more proposals. But again, this round will be funding 2 proposals for this particular round of funding. And I think with that, I'm going to throw it back to you, Mariah.
One of the first people I met and was inspired by, you know, at the very beginning of my role as the director at JCDREAM was Patricia Townsend, and she's has been interested in this since the very beginning. So I'm really glad to have Patricia here to tell us what she's learned. Patricia is the Regional Extension Specialist for WSU, and she is a champion of the environment, performing research and working with stakeholders throughout the Pacific Northwest on issues related to green infrastructure, renewables, energy, sustainability, and ecosystem services. In her dissertation research, she worked closely with landowners and local conservation practitioners to find realistic solutions to land degradation and planning for climate change in Costa Rica. Patricia also directs natural resources programs for WSU Snohomish County Extension and has led outreach efforts for advanced hardwood biofuels Northwest. So without further ado, welcome Patricia, and we'll let you take over.
Thank you for that introduction, Aaron. Does my sound good? Everyone hear me okay? Yeah, all right. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Aaron. There's a few familiar faces that I see on here. It's good to see you all this morning, and I'm glad we could be together in this virtual format. And I'm excited to tell you how I've been involved with JCDREAM for the past, it's been a little over a year and a half. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully my PowerPoint will come up okay. So as Aaron mentioned, my name is Patricia Townsend. I'm from Washington State University Extension. I happened to see one of the Call for Seed grants right as Aaron had joined as the director of JCDREAM. Prior to working on JCDREAM, I had worked on a large biofuels project that worked across the Northwest, and we were very much interested in transportation fuels. And when I think about JCDREAM and the mission, I'm very thankful to both Mel and Aaron for helping me to think critically about where materials come from. We look at this shot from the traffic on I-5, you know, we think 20, 30 years from now, these will all be electric vehicles. But that doesn't mean that all of our problems are solved, because the materials in those vehicles, where the batteries that run those vehicles come from, you know, those have environmental impacts as well. If any of you have noticed in the news recently, there's been a new study that has come out from the Washington Stormwater Center on tire dust that comes from our vehicles that is harmful to our salmon. So materials science, materials matters a lot. It's a big deal. And I'm just so thankful that I've been able to learn much more about it during this project. When I think about the students that we all work with, you know, most of us, and especially the younger generation, we have cell phones. So we have cell phones, we know where those cell phones are, and we know where our local Starbucks are. But we don't necessarily know what materials make up those cell phones. And in my opinion, we need a much more scientific literate public, and that starts with the education programs that we are developing in our schools and in our 2- and 4-year colleges across the state. You know, the future is robotics. You know, we need people to be trained to work in that area. This is a picture of a rover component, and here we have someone looking at how the mechanics of how that works. But we also need people very much aware of what is going on in terms of the materials in that. So when I saw that first seed grant solicitation, I was fortunate that the project that I'd worked on, we'd worked with the community and technical colleges across the state. And I did my homework and saw that in the legislative mandate for the funding for JCDREAM is to work with the community and technical colleges in Washington state. And so we, you know, part of JCDREAM's job is to help all of you. And at that point in time, Erin said they didn't really know how to help the faculty at the community and technical colleges across the state. I debated whether to show this map or not, but since only about, 50% of you, less than 50% of you were from the state's community and technical colleges, some may not be aware, you know, the reach that we have 32 community and technical colleges across the state. You know, it's a robust education system with a lot of faculty that teach in science, technology, and engineering. And, you know, what could we do as JCDREAM to help them teach material science, to help them think about these issues of where things come from, how to build our clean energy economies, and how to do that better. So what I did, and in part this was helped with my colleague Jason Selwitz, who at the time was at Walla Walla Community College. And Jason gave me a student to help me build a database. And of that database, we were basically searching the web, trying to find all of the faculty that worked at these community and technical colleges across the state that worked in science, technology, and engineering, and design a survey for them to find out, you know, what are they teaching in regards to critical materials? What do they need? How can we help them? So that was one part of the study, and that started in June of 2019. The second part of the study was going through interviews, and then also more recently, I've been doing focus groups to talk to people about specific, you know, how could material science be integrated into work that they already do to provide info on Materials Washington. And, you know, how can we increase, you know, teaching in material science? So I'm going to go over the first part, which was the electronic survey that I started in June of 2019. And after the database was created, and as part of that, you know, I was trying to connect with all of the community and technical colleges in Washington state. And I wasn't able to do that. I was able to connect with a lot of them. The survey ended up reaching 27 of the 32 community and technical colleges. This survey was sent to 346 faculty across the state. We are trying to reach faculty in every part of the state. And the questions that I asked them was, what were they doing in terms of their teaching on critical materials, clean energy, you know, what experiences and challenges were they having doing that? We asked questions about whether the students learn manufacturing skills and whether critical materials are addressed in that. And we asked the faculty for ideas on how to integrate more material science into their courses. And so this survey I did in the, started it in the summer of 2019. And then again, I did it a year ago in the fall of 2019. I ended up getting 47 respondents representing 20 of the state's colleges. Most of them were from chemistry or engineering faculty. And what they had told me is that there wasn't much going on in terms of students learning material science in their courses. Other things that we learned are, environmental stewardship, extremely important or very important to the faculty and their students. A lot of them taught about clean energy and technology, that was highly relevant. And one of my respondents said, you've inspired me to include renewable supply chain issues in my curriculum. And so that's what we want to do. We want people to start to integrate this into their teaching, into the work that they already do. And I want to mention that this is just kind of a snippet of the results. So if you want more information, please get in touch with me. Another faculty member said, I would love to discuss sourcing of sustainable materials in my mechanics of materials course. A lot of them said that 37% that financial was a barrier. And so that's where JCDREAM can help. As Mel and Ann talked about earlier, giving some funding to develop more modules on material science and having that be an assistance means to integrate this into the classroom. Another idea that was expressed in the responses was, in addition to curriculum development, would be video tutorials. So there's lots of ways that all of you can work together with some support from JCDREAM to integrate more of the material science education into the work that you're already doing. So the focus groups, those also started in summer of 2019. That's how I ended up finding Mel. And so thankful that we found Mel, and that was through, somebody said, you have to talk to Mel Cassette. And so we did. And that was a part of identifying, the key individuals, the key players that work in material science education in the state. And that's something in the social science field that's called a snowball sample method. So all of you here on this webinar today, you all have a network of people. So part of how you can help is to build this network. From there, what we've started to do is focus groups. And we started with colleges that had a very high response rate in the survey. And so the first focus group we did, it was really exciting to have, someone that was a chemistry teacher and more of an environmental science teacher and more of a microbiology teacher, and bring them all together to brainstorm about how material science education could be integrated into the work that they were doing. So we've done a couple of those, and Mel has been able to collaborate with me on those. Going forward, I want to continue doing these focus groups, and these will be from different colleges. So if you're interested, please contact me. I'm hoping to squeeze in at least one more focus group before we go into the holiday break. And what we've found in talking with people in these more in-depth interviews and focus groups so far is that it's much easier to integrate material science into existing courses as to develop a full-blown course on material science. The bandwidth to do that is hard for a lot of reasons at different schools, and probably the current situation that we're all living in now and the economic turmoil is going to make that even more difficult for the near future. But there's a lot of opportunities to develop curriculum and modules that can fit into existing courses. One thing we heard recently in one of the focus groups is that these modules, they need to be very curriculum specific. We had someone that teaches calculus that was very excited about having material science and learning about these different critical materials, integrating it into their calculus course. But they needed something that was very specific to their mathematics discipline. So I think, there's lots of opportunities. Most initially, you know, they were not aware of this National Resource Center for Materials Technology Education. And so spreading awareness about that there's modules out there that already exist, that we're creating more. You know, spreading awareness is a lot of what this work is doing. We talked with the faculty about creative ways to involve students, you know, whether we could have, you know, some sort of material science type workshop where we bring people to their campus to help get students more engaged, more excited. We also talked to faculty about, you know, the best times for workshops to help inform them more about material science. And most of what we're hearing right now is during the summertime. And so I know I specifically asked, you know, if we chose a really nice location where, you know, you could go and learn, but then, you know, during the break time, you had a good place to go for a walk or a lake, a beach, a hike, you know, something like that would be appealing to folks, that they would dedicate some time to do that. I know that was also one of the questions during the breakout room that we just had. So in conclusion, you know, thinking about how to integrate this into work that is already being done, you know, thinking about that some of the colleges are really focusing on engineering students that are going to go on to four-year colleges, and how to integrate that into the engineering component of those classes, how to have really ready-made modules that teachers can easily, you know, follow and teach. And really thinking about how this can be integrated into existing courses. So I have a lot of acknowledgements. You know, JCDREAM has supported me on 2 rounds of seed funding to do this work. So I thank you, Aaron. I think Jason Selwitz, who was really helpful at the beginning, provided a lot of advice on how to reach the faculty at the colleges across the state. Jason gave me a student, Taylor Hayes, who helped build the database that we have. I had an assistant, Noel Hart, who worked with this. And then Joyce Hammer, who is a dean at Centralia Community College. She helped put me in touch with more faculty. And I think all of the faculty that have taken time to answer my survey. If you're on this webinar today and you have not taken the survey, you don't know you've taken the survey, and you don't have enough time for a focus group or an interview, it's a really short survey that provides a lot of valuable information. Please get in touch with me and I can send you the survey to take. And I will say thank you. Here's my contact information. And if we have time for questions, I could take those now.
All right, thank you so much, Patricia. If there are any questions about Patricia's work right now, we're happy to answer those. We will have an opportunity for Q&A at the end of this next breakout session as well. So we are going to go into some new breakout sessions. I've shuffled everyone around so we can kind of build off of the conversations from last round, but also, you know, incorporate some of what we just learned from Patricia's work. So I'll go ahead and send everyone there. These will be another 20 minutes. So these will end at 11:10 and then come back to the main session for Q&A. If you do have to hop off, I understand. I know there was some confusion with the calendar invite and the length of it on this meeting. So we hope you can stick around, but if you can't, thank you so much for being here. I will send out the evaluation link to everyone just after the meeting, and we'll send everyone to breakout rooms. Hi, everybody. Looks like we're just waiting on breakout room 2, and then we'll be able to kind of carry on. My main goal for this end session is just a little bit of Q&A, and we're going to have representatives, the captains essentially from the breakout rooms, just kind of give a 2-minute spiel or share on some of the things that went on in their breakout sessions. So do I have Anne or Patricia or someone who wants to volunteer to maybe start on the report out?
I'll go, Mariah. Oh, go ahead, Patricia. Did you want to go? Oh, I'll go ahead and start off. Is that okay?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you, Anne.
So we were able to tackle 2 questions. One was kind of a nuts and bolts question around when we're able to return to face-to-face events regarding timing and stuff. So there's enthusiasm for returning to face-to-face events. For faculty, Fridays are the best day, but there's also a desire to stay with kind of a hybrid option, being able to maybe have a face-to-face, but have faculty have access during utilizing technology via Zoom or WebEx or whatever it might be. And then the positive feedback regarding, so like today's presentation, having blocks of presentations, having the breakouts. So it's, you know, making it, the experience as interactive as possible and as flexible for faculty, as flexible as possible for faculty to fully participate. And then the next one was, how do we ensure our educational materials are accessible statewide? Really great input here about making sure that the instructional modules align with the program discipline so that students understand you know, how that module aligns with their discipline or the occupation they're training for. The calculus example was a great one. You know, so in welding, how does that apply? If it's marine technology, how does that apply? So a lot of good feedback regarding alignment, and I'll send you the responses with the bullet points, so you've got those via email.
Thank you. And Patricia, would you like to go?
So we were fortunate that in the group that I had, that we had Representative Smith with us, and Representative Smith talked a little bit about the disconnect between what we have in people that are interested in material science and those that are interested in environmental science, and how we can really inspire both our educators and our students to realize that there's consequences to the materials that we use. We talked some about the modules that Matt EDU has developed. I was fortunate to have Craig Johnson in my group and doing work to make these modules more accessible so that they were very easy for teachers to use, so that they are short on that. The other interesting part we came up with was that Lance from Edmonds College talked about that we have this really unprecedented time. We have a lot of people that are struggling, they're out of work, and they may remain out of work for a while as our economy recovers. So how do we train them? How do we offer short-term certificates? And could there be possibility that we're offering, you know, material science education certificate in that enables people to get a job here in the near term? So a lot of opportunities out there that we talked about. We kind of went on a wild brainstorming mission in my group.
Awesome. That's what we wanted. Perfect. Erin, would you like to go next?
Sure. Yeah, so we had a handful of good conversations. We spent the first breakout session talking a lot about diversity and inclusion. And so some of the ideas that we had, Danica from UW mentioned that we need to reach out to teachers in specific underrepresented communities. And we talked about how to identify those instructors in different parts of the state, and just using them as a springboard. Anne mentioned that there actually are, you know, diversity equity officer groups at a lot of these institutions. There are faculty of color groups, and I mentioned that WSU, I'm aware of, is actually doing a, I think it's, I'm not sure exactly the name of it, but they're trying to do a hiring cohort with a group of professors that they're going to hire all at once, with an emphasis on diversity and inclusion, and identify them, you know, with each other, and kind of use that cohort to form a network that hopefully can build on itself. I guess Steve from Edmonds, or sorry, David from Edmonds actually mentioned something that I thought was really important, which is that there is often an issue, there can be an issue with building trust. And so making sure that you look for existing community groups or educational groups that have already established that trust with the community, and try to establish trust with them, and then build from there is an important thing to take note of. And then Steve from PACCAR actually mentioned that from a lot of he's done a lot of educational outreach, I think, in his background, and just, you know, meeting with kids, showing them technology and how this all ties together, making them aware of what all the options are, giving them a firsthand view into what engineering and science is like, is really helpful. And so just doing that outreach and showing up in the classroom and meeting with kids, giving them lab tours, things like that is a really good way to start. So we had lots of good conversations about that. Let's see, I think the other, I think we talked a bit about developing modules, and, you know, I think we had some various different ideas about how, you know, I talked about some energy modules that I've created, and we talked about shape memory alloys and different exciting things that you can show in material science. But one of the, I think probably the most important thing is that a lot of this has been done already. And so trying to make sure everybody is aware of it and that we don't reinvent the wheel. You know, again, the fact that we have the Met EDU Resource Center already is a great starting point, but continuing to build on what's already out there and try to establish a cohesive resource center that people can access easily, and you know, probably just doing things like this, talking amongst these, you know, these groups to help everybody just become aware of you know, what's being done already to address those challenges. I think those are probably the main points I think that are worth sharing with you all from our breakout session. But it was a lot of great conversations though. So thank you all for participating.
Great, thank you, Erin. Kathy, would you like to share?
Certainly. We had Bart and Peter in our group both asking for something similar, which is like, where are all the career paths and the alumni, the speaker, people that already are in these careers that we can bring in and have them come talk to our classroom. How can we show them how much money they'll make and how much career growth there is? You know, what does that look like? And we don't quite have that yet. But that's also the same for bringing in some of the diversity, is having someone that's already in the field come in and speak. The subject matter experts, which was mentioned earlier with this group. We also had Kim Grady with all of her expertise about what we do have and how all the hands-on modules that are available, all the resources that are available, different organizations that are available. So that helped answer some of those questions. Let me look a little bit more on this list. Oh, getting people out into industry, getting people on tours, and start as young as possible. Can this be with middle school as well? Grade school. Get the interest already at the earlier ages, have more hands-on, of course everything's hands-on that we're talking about, we know that. Something to take home that shows that you can do it, that you know how to use, how you can make a difference in your life that could even have to do with your cell phone. Something that really means something to each student. Those are where we were going mainly, and it's fun conversation. Love being part of this. Then we went off in other directions, you know, about batteries and airplanes, all of that.
Thank you so much. Sounds like these breakout sessions were great and were very collaborative, which is exactly what we wanted. So thank you so much, everyone, for giving us your 2 cents and more, and helping out with, you know, creating this experience and trying to build this community. We do have a little bit more time if anybody has any questions for any of our presenters, or just anything that you'd like to post to the group. Got about 7 minutes left. So you can feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to share something or ask a question.
I think what I'm excited about, and we've got a little bit of a smaller group here now, but I want you guys all to know that we're gonna keep doing this year after year, and this is just the beginning of what I hope will be a continual effort to, you know, develop this community and keep creating more content and more modules, and hopefully doing it in a way that helps everyone, you know, pursue the educational objectives that they're after. And trying to address the issues that are important to JCDREAM. So I thank you guys all for participating, and we're gonna keep holding events like this virtual for now, and hopefully we'll get to see each other face to face here sometime in the next 12 months or sooner.